always loved the mountains. I like to hike, I like to camp, they're pretty to look at. But it never occurred to me to climb a mountain until I met my husband, Dan. Now, Dan is a leader with the Mazamas, a local climbing organization here in Portland. And when I first met him, I was really surprised to find he had this closet that was full of weird gear, the pointy metal things and ropes and things I couldn't even identify. And he would leave on the weekends to climb mountains in the middle of the night. He would literally get up at midnight and climb a mountain. It was all very new and very strange to me. Well, in 1999, Dan was getting his master's thesis finished, and he knew he wouldn't have time for a girlfriend. So he convinced me to take the Mazama's basic climbing education program. This is a 6-week class where you learn how to climb mountains. And so I took the class, I read that textbook, I was fascinated by it. I learned what all those pointy things in Dan's closet were for, and I learned these weird nuggets of information, like if you're roped to your partner and you're climbing along a ridge, and your partner falls down the side of the ridge, what you're supposed to do is jump to the other side so that the rope catches you in the middle and you break his fall. Yeah, right. Well, I read that textbook and I went on those field sessions and dogged up the heels of the rest of my more fit classmates, and we learned in the snow how to self-arrest, which is basically you take your ice axe and thumbtack yourself to the side of the mountain so you don't slide down. And I learned to climb and started climbing a little bit with Dan. And in 2003, we joined an outing to the Swiss Alps. Now, you've heard of the Eiger probably. It's that mountain in Switzerland that's so steep and iconic. The north face has no snow on it because the snow won't stick to it. It's so steep. Well, right next to the Eiger is the Munch. And at 13,474 feet, it is 500 feet taller than the Eiger, and that's the mountain that we climbed. But the Swiss in pre-World War I built a tunnel through the Eiger, so tourists can now take a train up to 11,000 feet, and then the climb starts from there. So because of that train, the Munch is actually one of the easiest peaks to climb in the Alps. But easy is kind of a relative term, and as we started out on that climb, it was very clear to me that I was the worst climber of the 8 of us that day. But, you know, after the rest of my rope team took the stuff out of my pack and put it in their pack so I could keep up with them, we got going on the climb, and I managed to go. Now the Alps are characterized by steep, bouldery, rocky scrambles, and then in between those, there's these ice ridges. Now, picture a balance beam. Well, no, it's actually a little wider than that. Picture an ironing board, yeah. And cover it with ice, and put it up at an angle, and then raise it up in the air so there's like 1,000 feet on each side of you. And that kind of describes these ice ridges that we were climbing that day. So I had a lot going on. I had to remember all the things that I'd learned, how to keep my crampons from tangling up, and how to keep the rope taut, and dealing with the anchors and everything. And I was doing this all at 12,000 feet, and so I had so much going on. It was hard, but I kept thinking to myself, this is going to be so worth it. This is the Alps. This is what every climber dreams about, and I'm going to get to the top, and I'm going to feel that high, that elation. This is going to be great. And so we plodded on through the day, and as we got near the top, I put my ice axe down in the snow next to me, and when I pulled it out, there was this hole through the snow. There was a cornice there, and you could see through that hole all the way down to Grindelwald, like 2 miles below us. And I realized that if I had put my foot there, that would have been me going all the way down to Grindelwald. But I didn't. And we got to the top, and we had high fives all around and taking pictures, and I felt nothing. Where was my climber's high? Where was this elation that I was supposed to feel? It wasn't worth it. You couldn't really see very well. There was a cornice there, and you couldn't spend very long basking in your glory at the top because you had to get down, and I just didn't get it. I realized right then I was never going to be a mountaineer. I was never going to be the one who says, because it's there, when somebody asks, why do you climb? And as we started down the mountain, I started composing in my head my speech to Dan, where I was going to tell him that I was really glad we'd done this, but I was not going to be a mountaineer and not going to climb at his level. And like I said, you can't stay very long at the top because the sun starts to melt the snow in the midday, and it gets warm and slushy, and it's dangerous. And we were worried about that because the sun was out that day and we were getting a little late. And we'd come down a little ways, and we had finished putting our crampons back on to go out on one of these ice ridges. And Monty, who was at the head of our rope team, turned back to me and he said, I was going to say that the ice feels good, but they just fell. And he pointed out on the ridge ahead of him, and about 100 yards away, the party in front of us, someone had fallen and was down on the snow. And we looked, and we didn't think it was that bad at first because we thought she'd get up, but then she didn't get up, and she started to slide, and it caused this chain reaction, and she pulled the next one on the rope down with her, and they both started sliding down the side of the mountain. And Sandy was standing next to me. She said, he's got to jump right. And it occurred to me, this was this absurd situation from our textbook. And we started yelling, jump right, jump right. And we didn't know if he could hear. We didn't even know if they could speak English, but we just yelled, jump right, jump right. And eventually, the head of their rope team leaped off the mountain on the other side, and he jammed his ice axe into the ice in self-arrest, and he held on, and we watched as he fell up. So he got dragged up the side of the mountain by the weight of the rest of his team down the other side of the ridge. And it slowly, slowly kept going up until finally, just before the lip, it stopped. And there he was, one man holding on with the weight of 4 other people down the side, like pearls on a string on the other side of the mountain. Well, I knew I couldn't do anything about this, but the other 3 men on my rope team were trained in this sort of thing, so I got out of the rope and they went out on the ridge. Dan built an anchor with gear that he had with him, and they got their rope attached to that anchor, and then they got their rope attached to the rope of the other team. And so finally, there was something more than just the one guy holding these 4 people from sliding back down into the valley. So slowly, they started pulling them up one at a time. The slope was too steep to actually walk up. So they used the ropes to help them up, and another party came along and helped the stricken party down and away, leaving us to clean up the anchors and the ropes and get on with our climb, which by that time over an hour had passed just in the rescue, and the sun was no longer out. It was starting to mist and sprinkle a little bit, and we could hear thunder, and we heard an avalanche come down on the side of the mountain. But the worst hazard right this time was actually that there's a last train down from the station. And if you don't make that train, you spend the night up on the mountain. And we didn't really know when the last train was, but we started climbing as fast as we could. We we couldn't stop to eat or drink. We just scrambled down as quick as we could, and Monty and John were faster, so as soon as we got off the rope, they went on ahead, and Dan stayed back with me, trying to get over. There was this snow bridge that we had crossed in the morning. It was gone, and we had to find another way out, and finally we got onto the glacier, and we're walking, running as fast as we can toward that train station, and we see the train station tunnel ahead of us, and it's all dark, and we thought the train is gone, but there was Monty's headlamp shining his way out there. They had already turned off the lights in the station, but the train was still there, and we followed Monty into the station and jumped on the train. The train took off, and we got down to the station. And there we met up with the party that we had rescued. It turned out they were a Czech family, beginner climbers. A family friend had taken them climbing and was their leader that day. And they didn't speak a lot of English. We communicated with hugs and tears and a Czech beer that got passed around. And I got talking to their leader a little bit. He spoke a little bit more English, and he said that he had heard someone yell, "Jump right," and that had triggered in his mind what he had to do to save them all. And so, you know, Dan's never going to believe me when I tell him that it wasn't actually the rescue that made me not want to climb at that level, but it is. And, you know, I got a good story out of the whole thing. I can honestly say that I once told a complete stranger to jump off a cliff, and he did, and he thanked me for it.